All right. So you're here listening because, you've reached a really good level in English. I mean, C2, that's fantastic. But you're looking for something a little bit more, right?
Absolutely.
You want to just polish things up. I want to sound, really, really natural. Maybe get rid of some of the little mistakes that creep in every now and again. And really you're aiming for that near native feel.
Yeah, I think that's a really common goal for people at that level. They can, watch movies, they can read books, they can, have conversations, but there's always this sense that there's something else that they're missing. And I think that's often those really subtle elements of the language that you just don't pick up from textbooks.
So today we're going to arrive into one specific method that we think is actually really fun and really effective, and that is using TV series to help you improve your English. What do you think?
Yeah, I think TV series are an amazing tool for language learning in general, but especially for learners at the C2 level. You've already got that solid foundation in terms of grammar and vocabulary. But what series can really help you with is developing that natural flow that native speakers have. The rhythm, the intonation, the way that they use idioms and slang. And
also that sort of implicit understanding of the culture that really shapes how people speak, right?
Exactly, yeah. The cultural references, the humor, the kind of unspoken rules of conversation, all of that is embedded in TV series.
Yeah, it's like having a window into another world, into how people actually communicate in those specific contexts.
Yeah, and I think what's really great about TV series as well is that you get this repeated exposure to the language. You're spending hours and hours with the same characters, listening to them speak. And that really helps to kind of internalize those natural patterns of speech.
Yeah, you're not just learning individual words or phrases, you're actually absorbing the way that people connect them together, the way that they use intonation to convey different meanings.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is that you're doing it in a really enjoyable way. You're not sitting down with a textbook and trying to memorize rules. You're actually just relaxing and watching TV, but at the same time you're absorbing all of this rich linguistic input.
And we've picked out a real range of series here, haven't we? I mean, we've got some real intense dramas, some really funny comedies, some science fiction, even some historical stuff. So a bit of something for everyone, really.
Exactly. Yeah, we wanted to cover a broad spectrum of genres. Because different types of series will expose you to different types of language. So hopefully there's something here that'll appeal to everyone's tastes.
All right, well, let's kick things off then, shall we? And what better way to start than with a show that really throws you in at the deep end? I'm talking, of course, about The West Wing.
Yeah, The West Wing is a fantastic choice for C2 learners, particularly those who are interested in politics or current affairs. It's a political drama set in the White House. So you get to see behind the scenes of American politics.
And the language is just so sharp and so quick, isn't it?
Yeah, it's notoriously fast-paced. The characters talk over each other. They use a lot of jargon and technical terms, and they're very witty. There's a lot of banter and wordplay.
It can be a bit overwhelming at first, can't it?
It can, yeah, definitely. But that's what makes it so good for language learning, because if you can keep up with The West Wing, you can keep up with pretty much any native speaker.
I remember watching it for the first time and just having to keep pausing and rewinding because I was like, whoa, hold on, what did they just say?
Yeah, I think that's a really good tip, actually, for learners who are struggling to keep up with the pace. Don't be afraid to pause and rewind and even listen to sections multiple times until you understand what's being said.
Absolutely. And it's worth making the effort because you learn so much vocabulary from it. I mean, all these political terms that you might not come across in everyday conversation, but are actually really useful to know if you're, following the news or reading articles about politics.
Yeah, exactly. You'll come across words like filibuster and veto and caucus and all sorts of other things that you might not have heard of before.
And it's not just the vocabulary, it's the way that they use language to persuade and to argue and to make their point. It's a real masterclass in rhetoric.
Yeah, and it's also very witty and humorous. There's a lot of sarcasm and irony and wordplay. So it's not all dry and serious. It's actually very entertaining.
Yeah, you can tell that Aaron Sorkin, who created the show, really loves language.
He does, yeah. He's a real wordsmith.
Is there any episode in particular that you would recommend for people to start with?
I think Two Cathedrals is a really good one. It's from season 2. It's a very powerful episode, both emotionally and linguistically.
All right, so the West Wing, for those of you who are feeling brave and want to challenge yourselves, let's switch gears now and look at something a little bit more lighthearted.
Okay.
And something that's beloved by people all over the world. I mean, I'm talking about Friends, of course.
Yep, right.
A classic sitcom.
A classic.
And some people might think, well, it's just a sitcom. It's just, kind of silly jokes and easy language. But actually, I think there's a lot that C2 learners can get out of Friends.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's a misconception that sitcoms are somehow too easy for advanced learners. But actually, I think they can be really valuable because they expose you to that very natural, everyday conversational English that you don't always get from other sources.
And also the cultural references. I mean, Friends is so iconic, and there are so many catchphrases and jokes from it that have just become part of popular culture. So if you understand those references, it really helps you to kind of integrate into the English-speaking world.
Yeah, and I think another thing that Friends does really well is developing the characters' personalities through their language. Each character has their own very distinctive way of speaking.
Oh, absolutely.
Chandler is very sarcastic and witty. Monica is very kind of organized and precise. Phoebe is kind of quirky and eccentric.
Yeah, and Roth is just Ross.
Yeah, Ross is Ross.
So by listening to them speak, you really get a sense of who they are as people.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important part of language learning is understanding that language is not just about conveying information. It's also about expressing your personality and connecting with other people.
Yeah, and in terms of specific things that C2 learners can focus on, I think the use of idioms in Friends is really good. There are so many common idioms that come up time and time again.
Yeah, and phrasal verbs as well.
Phrasal verbs, yeah.
Which are always a challenge for learners.
And also just the general rhythm of conversation, how people interrupt each other, how they finish each other's sentences, how they use intonation to convey different meanings.
Yeah, and the humor as well. A lot of the humor in Friends is based on wordplay and puns and misunderstandings.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's a really good way to develop your understanding of those aspects of the language.
What about a standout episode? Which one would you recommend?
I think the one with the embryos is a really classic episode. It's the one where they play the quiz. And it's just a really good example of the fast-paced, witty dialogue that Friends is known for.
All right, so that's Friends. It's a fun one to watch, but also, pay attention to the language and you'll learn a lot.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to something completely different now. Let's talk about Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad.
Now, this is a show that I think really pushes the boundaries in terms of language.
It does, yeah.
It's a crime drama. And the characters are involved in some pretty dark stuff, so the language reflects that. It can be quite intense.
Yeah, there's a lot of swearing, there's violence, there's drug use. So it's definitely not a show for everyone.
But for C2 learners who are looking for a real challenge and who are interested in seeing how language can be used to create tension and suspense and to portray really complex characters, then I think Breaking Bad is definitely worth watching.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that Breaking Bad does really well is contrast the different speech styles of the characters. You've got Walter White, who is a chemistry teacher, and he's very articulate and uses a lot of sophisticated vocabulary.
Yeah.
And then you've got Jesse Pinkman, who is his former student, and his language is much more informal and slangy.
Right.
And so you get this really interesting contrast between the two of them and how they use language to express themselves.
And as the show goes on and Walter gets more and more involved in the drug trade, his language actually starts to change as well, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. He becomes much more ruthless and manipulative, and that's reflected in the way that he speaks.
Yeah, it's almost like he's adopting Jesse's language in a way.
Yeah, he does, yeah. He starts to use more slang, and he becomes much more comfortable with using threats and intimidation.
And I think the setting is also quite important in Breaking Bad. It's set in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is in the southwestern United States.
Yeah.
And so you get to hear some regional accents and some local expressions that you might not be familiar with.
Yeah, and the show also makes use of a lot of Spanish words and phrases, because it's set so close to the Mexican border.
Right.
So that's another interesting element of the language you can pick up on.
Is there a particular episode of Breaking Bad that you think really stands out in terms of the language?
I think Ozymandias is a really powerful episode. It's from season 5. It's a very dramatic episode, and the language is very intense and emotional.
All right. Well, Breaking Bad is not for the faint of heart, but if you're up for the challenge, then it's a fantastic show to watch, and you'll learn a lot about the dark side of American English.
Yeah.
Okay, let's cross the Atlantic now and head to London for our next recommendation. And of course, I'm talking about Sherlock.
Sherlock.
Now, this is a show that I think is just a gift for language learners.
It is, yeah.
The language is so rich and so witty and so fast-paced.
Yeah, and so British.
So British, yes.
Benedict Cumberbatch, who plays Sherlock, he's got this very distinctive way of speaking. He's very articulate. He uses a lot of long words. He's very quick and witty.
Yeah. He speaks in these incredible rapid-fire monologues, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. It's almost like he's thinking out loud.
And then you've got Martin Freeman as Watson, who's much more kind of down-to-earth and relatable.
Yeah. He's the kind of the everyman character.
So you get this really nice contrast between the two of them.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that makes the show so enjoyable to watch is the dynamic between Sherlock and Watson.
And it's not just the dialogue that's great. The writing is also really clever. There are all these little puns and word plays and references that you might not pick up on the first viewing.
Yeah, it's definitely a show that rewards multiple viewings.
And it's also very visually stylish, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's got this very modern, kind of edgy look to it.
And I think the setting is also really important in Sherlock. London is such an iconic city, and the show really captures the atmosphere of the place. Yeah,
and it's also very British, in terms of the humor and the cultural references.
Right.
So it's a good way to kind of immerse yourself in British culture.
Is there a particular episode that you would recommend people to start with?
I think the first episode, A Study in Pink, is a really good introduction to the show.
All right, so Sherlock is a must-watch for anyone who's interested in British English, in clever dialogue, and just a really well-made TV show.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Okay, let's step back in time now to the 1960s and take a look at Mad Men.
Mad Men.
Now, this is a show that's all about style and sophistication.
It is, yeah.
It's set in the world of advertising, and it follows the lives of a group of advertising executives.
Yeah, and it's very much a period piece. The clothes, the music, the language, it all feels very authentic to the 1960s.
And the language is just so beautiful, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's very elegant and sophisticated.
And you get to see how advertising works, how they come up with these slogans and these campaigns.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how advertising has changed over the years. The techniques that they were using back then are very different from what we see today.
And the characters are so complex and so flawed and so interesting.
They are, yeah. They're all very human. They've all got their secrets and their desires and their failings.
And there's a lot of unspoken tension between them, isn't there?
There is. A lot of the trauma in the show comes from the relationships between the characters.
And the way that they use language to kind of manipulate each other and to get what they want.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a particular episode that you think really captures the essence of Mad Men?
I think The Wheel is a really good one. It's the season 1 finale. And it's a very powerful episode, both emotionally and thematically.
All right, so Mad Men is a show for people who appreciate good writing, good acting, and good style.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to another show that's very stylish, but in a very different way. Let's talk about Black Mirror.
Okay.
Now, this is a show that I think is really relevant to our times.
It is, yeah.
It's a science fiction anthology series, and each episode tells a different story about the dark side of technology.
Yeah, and it's very thought-provoking. It really makes you think about the impact that technology is having on our lives and on society.
And the language in Black Mirror is really interesting because it often incorporates technical terms and futuristic concepts.
Yeah, and it can be quite challenging to keep up with sometimes because the writers are very creative with their use of language.
But I think that's part of the appeal of the show, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's definitely a show that makes you think.
And it's also visually very striking, I think.
It is, yeah. Each episode has its own very distinctive look and feel.
Is there a particular episode of Black Mirror that you would recommend to people?
I think Nosedive is a really good one. It's from season 3. And it's a very satirical episode about social media and the pressure to be popular.
All right, so Black Mirror is a show for people who like to be challenged, who like to think about the future, and who are interested in seeing how language can be used to explore new ideas.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to a show now that's set in the past, but that I think is still really relevant today.
Okay.
And that's The Crown.
Ah, The Crown.
Now, this is a historical drama about the reign of Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah, and it's incredibly well made.
It is. The production values are amazing.
The acting is superb. The costumes, the sets, everything is just top-notch.
And the language is fascinating because it gives you a glimpse into how the royal family speaks.
Yeah, it's very formal and polite, and there's a lot of emphasis on tradition and protocol.
Yeah, it's a real contrast to some of the other shows that we've been talking about.
It is, yeah.
But I think it's a really good example of how language can be used to convey power and authority.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting to see how the Queen's language has changed over the years.
Oh, absolutely.
In the early episodes, she's very young and she's still finding her feet and her language is a bit more hesitant.
Right.
But as she gets older and more experienced, she becomes much more confident and assured in her use of language.
And it's interesting to see how the other characters adjust their language depending on who they're speaking to.
Yeah, exactly. They're much more formal when they're speaking to the Queen than they are when they're speaking to each other.
Is there a particular episode of The Crown that you would recommend?
I think Hyde Park Corner is a really good one. It's from season 1.
Okay.
And it's the episode where the Queen has to deal with the death of her father.
All right. So The Crown is a show for people who are interested in British history and in the royal family and in formal English.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's finish up with a show now that's a bit more down earth. Let's talk about The Office.
The Office.
Now, this is a mockumentary comedy set in a paper company in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and it's hilarious.
It is. It's so funny. And the characters are just so relatable.
Yeah, they have very kind of ordinary people with ordinary problems.
But they're also really quirky and well-developed.
Yeah, and the show does a great job of kind of satirizing office culture.
Oh, absolutely.
All of the kind of penny rivalries and the awkward social interactions and just the general absurdity of working in an office.
And the language in The Office is really interesting because it's a mix of kind of everyday conversational English and office jargon.
Yeah, and there's a lot of improvisation as well. The actors were given a lot of freedom to kind of ad lib and come up with their own lines.
So it feels very natural and very spontaneous.
It does, yeah.
Is there a particular episode of The Office that you would recommend?
I think Dinner Party's a really classic episode. It's from season 4.
Okay.
And it's just a really good example of the show's cringe humor.
All right, so The Office is a show for people who like to laugh, who like to cringe, and who like to see how ordinary people use language in everyday situations.
Yeah, definitely.
So there you have it, a selection of some of the best TV series for C2 learners.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a small sample. Of course, there are so many other great shows out there, but hopefully this has given you some ideas of what to watch.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is to find something that you enjoy watching.
Absolutely.
If you're not enjoying it, then you're not going to learn anything from it.
So don't force yourself to watch something that you don't like just because you think it's good for your English.
Yeah, exactly.
Find something that you genuinely find entertaining, and then just sit back and relax and enjoy the show.
And pay attention to the language.
Yeah, try to notice the different ways that the characters use language and try to think about how you could use those same techniques in your own speaking and writing.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to pause and rewind and look up words that you don't understand.
Absolutely.
The more you engage with the language, the more you'll learn.
There you have it. Use TV series to boost your English to the next level. I mean, it's fun, it's effective, and it's a great excuse to watch more TV.
What's not to like?
Exactly. So what are you waiting for? Get out there and start watching.
Yeah, happy watching.
All right. Well, that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm your host, Mike, and today we're diving deep into using audiobooks to learn English.
Wonderful.
And joining me is language learning expert Sarah.
Hi, everyone.
Sarah, I'm a big audiobook fan, but I've always thought of them as entertainment, not really like a learning tool.
Right.
How can we actually use them to boost fluency?
That's a great question, Mike, and it's a common misconception. Audiobooks are so much more than just passive listening. They can be incredibly powerful for improving your English, no matter what level you're starting from.
Okay, so let's unpack that. What's the first step? Is it just about picking any audiobook and pressing play?
Well, not quite. Just like you wouldn't train for a marathon by running 26 miles on day one, you need an audiobook that matches your English level.
Makes sense.
Starting with something too complex can be discouraging, while something too simple might not challenge you enough.
So finding that sweet spot is key. What about active versus passive listening? Is it better to be fully focused, or can I just have the audiobook on in the background while I'm doing other things?
Both approaches have their benefits. Active listening is like laser focus, no distractions, maybe even following along with the text if you have it.
Okay.
It's about really absorbing the pronunciation, intonation, and grammar.
So it's like an intense workout for your listening skills.
Exactly. Now, passive listening is more about immersing yourself in the sounds of English. Think doing chores, walking, or even driving, as long as it's safe, of course. It helps train your ear to the natural rhythm and flow of the language.
I love that idea of training your ear. It makes the learning process feel more natural, almost effortless.
Exactly. And you can always switch back and forth between active and passive listening depending on your mood, your time, and what you want to achieve.
Okay, so we've chosen our audiobook and we're being strategic about our listening, but what about vocabulary? Audiobooks are packed with new words. How can we actually make those words stick?
That's where active engagement comes in. Repetition is key. When you hear a new word, don't just let it fly by. Rewind.
Okay.
Try to guess the meaning from the context. And then, this is crucial, write it down. Maybe create flashcards, keep a vocabulary journal, or use a language learning app.
Right.
Then, the most important step, use the new word.
Use it.
Try to incorporate it into your own speaking and writing.
You're so right about repetition. I used to keep a vocabulary notebook while listening to audiobooks, and it really helped. But isn't it overwhelming to try and learn so many new words at once? How do we prioritize?
That's a really good point. You don't need to learn every single new word. Focus on words that seem relevant to your interests or that come up frequently.
Okay.
And remember, quality over quantity. It's better to learn a few words well than to superficially memorize a long list.
That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned pronunciation earlier, and I've always been a bit self-conscious about my accent. Can audiobooks actually help with that?
Absolutely. Listening to different narrators with various accents is like giving your ears a workout and recognizing different ways English is spoken around the world. You'll start to pick up on the nuances of pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. It's like immersing yourself in a variety of English-speaking environments.
I never thought about it that way. You've got me thinking. I never realized how much I could learn about intonation just from listening to an audiobook. Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Sure. Intonation is like the music of language. It's how your voice rises and falls, how you stress certain words, and where you pause. Think about how a simple yes can mean different things depending on your intonation.
Wow. That's fascinating. I can see how mastering intonation can really make a difference in sounding more natural and fluent.
Exactly. And audiobooks are a fantastic way to observe and absorb these subtle but important aspects of language.
Okay, so we've covered choosing the right audiobook, active and passive listening, vocabulary building, and even tackling pronunciation and intonation. This is already so much more than I expected. What's next?
Well, the next step is to turn this knowledge into action and make audiobooks a regular part of your English learning routine. That's where the real magic happens.
So how can we actually make that happen? How do we integrate audiobooks into our already busy lives?
There are so many ways. We'll delve into specific tips and tricks in just a moment, but first, think about your daily routine. Are there any pockets of time where you could squeeze in some listening? Maybe during your commute while you're cooking dinner, or even when you're working out?
I used to think of my commute as wasted time, but now I see it as prime audiobook time.
That's the spirit. Even short bursts of listening can be beneficial waiting in line at the store. Perfect time for 5 minutes of audiobook immersion.
It's like turning those little moments of downtime into opportunities for growth.
Exactly. And, creating a specific routine can also be really helpful. Maybe you set aside 30 minutes every evening before bed to listen to a chapter or two, or maybe you make it a Sunday morning ritual to relax with an audiobook and a cup of coffee.
I love that idea of a ritual. It's about making it a conscious choice, not just something I'm squeezing in when I happen to remember.
Precisely. And the beauty of audiobooks is that they're so flexible, you can listen while you're doing other things, so it doesn't have to feel like you're adding something extra to your already busy schedule.
It's like multitasking, but in a way that actually benefits your mind.
Exactly. And speaking of making things easier, many audiobook apps have speed controls, which can be a game changer.
Oh yes. I love being able to adjust the playback speed to match my comprehension level. Sometimes I slow it down if the narrator is particularly fast or if the topic is a bit challenging.
That's a great strategy. Slowing down the narration can make a world of difference for beginners. It gives you more time to process each word and really grasp what's being said. And on the flip side, more advanced learners might enjoy speeding up the narration to challenge themselves and get used to faster-paced English.
It's like choosing the right weight at the gym.
Yeah.
You want something that challenges you but doesn't overwhelm you.
That's a fantastic analogy. It's all about finding what works best for you and pushing yourself just a little bit outside your comfort zone.
Speaking of challenges, what about those times when we encounter new words or phrases that we don't understand? Should we stop and look them up every time?
Not necessarily. Context is key before you reach for the dictionary. Try to guess the meaning of the word based on the surrounding sentences. Often you'll be surprised at how much you can figure out just from the context.
So it's like a little detective game, using the clues to solve the mystery of the unknown word.
Exactly. And if you're really stumped, don't be afraid to pause the audiobook, jot down the word, and look it up later. But the key is to keep the flow going. You don't want to interrupt your listening experience too much.
I see what you mean. It's about finding that balance between active engagement and maintaining the enjoyment of the story.
That's exactly it. And once you've looked up those new words, try to use them as soon as possible. Incorporate them into your conversations, your writing, or even just your inner monologue. The more you use them, the more they'll become a natural part of your vocabulary.
It's like taking those new words out for a test drive and seeing how they handle on the road of real-life conversations.
I love that. So we've talked about finding those pockets of time for listening, creating a routine, using speed control strategically, and even tackling new vocabulary head-on. Do you feel like you're starting to see how audiobooks could be a powerful tool for learning English?
Absolutely. You've completely changed my perspective. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on choosing the right audiobooks. Are there specific genres or types of narrators that are particularly beneficial for language learners?
That's a great question. And the answer is, it depends.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
The most important thing is to choose audiobooks that you genuinely enjoy. Passion is a powerful motivator, and it'll make the learning process so much more enjoyable. If you love mysteries, go for it. If you're fascinated by biographies, dive right in.
So it's not just about finding books that are labeled as good for language learning. It's about finding books that spark your curiosity.
Exactly, but there are a few things to keep in mind in terms of narration. Look for narrators who have clear diction and a moderate pace. And don't be afraid to sample different accents. Listening to a variety of accents will train your ear to adapt to different ways English is spoken around the world.
That's a great tip. It's like exposing your ears to a diverse range of musical styles. The more you listen, the more nuanced your understanding becomes.
I love that analogy. And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Experiment with different genres, different narrators, and different listening speeds. Find what works best for you and your learning style.
This has been so insightful, Sarah. I'm already feeling inspired to revamp my audiobook listening habits. But before we move on to specific audiobook recommendations, is there anything else you'd like to add about making this a sustainable part of our language learning journey?
Yes. Actually, I think it's important to remember that consistency is key. Just like with any skill, the more you practice, the better you'll become. Even short bursts of listening can make a big difference over time. So don't feel pressured to listen for hours on end. Start small, find what works for you, and make it a regular part of your routine.
It's like building a muscle. Consistent workouts over time will yield the best results.
You got it, and don't be afraid to be patient with yourself. Language learning is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, but the most important thing is to keep going and enjoy the ride.
That's such a great reminder, Sarah. This has been a gold mine of information.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to put all of this into practice. Now, let's move on to the part I've been waiting for, your specific audiobook recommendations for different levels of English learners. Welcome back to the Learn English Lab. We're ready to wrap up our deep dive into audiobooks for learning English. Sarah, we've covered so much ground already, from choosing the right audiobook to tackling pronunciation and building vocabulary. Now let's get to the part I've been most excited about, your audiobook recommendations for learners at different levels.
I'm happy to share some of my favorites. Let's start with beginners. For those just starting their English learning journey, it's crucial to pick books with clear narration, simple vocabulary, and engaging storylines. One that fits the bill perfectly is Charlotte's Web by E.B. White.
Charlotte's Web is a classic. I remember reading it as a child. It's a heartwarming story about friendship, and the language is so beautiful.
It really is. Another great option for beginners is The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. It's short, repetitive, and perfect for practicing those basic sentence structures, plus the vivid imagery can really help with comprehension.
I love that even in audio form, I can practically picture those colorful illustrations.
Right. Now, for intermediate learners who are ready for a bit more complexity, the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling is a fantastic choice. It's got a captivating storyline-rich vocabulary, and you can choose between the American narration by Jim Dale or the British narration by Stephen Fry, which is great for experiencing different accents.
Great choice. But I've heard some learners find the magical vocabulary a bit too specific. Is there something a bit more grounded in everyday language that you'd recommend?
That's a fair point for something more contemporary and relatable.
Yeah.
I recommend Wonder by R.J. Palacio. It's a touching story about kindness and acceptance, and the language is very accessible.
Wonder is such a powerful book. I can see how it would resonate with learners of all ages.
Absolutely. Now, for our advanced learners who are ready to tackle more challenging material, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee is an absolute must-listen. It's a powerful story with a Southern U.S. accent, rich vocabulary, and themes that will stay with you long after you finish listening.
That's a great suggestion. To Kill a Mockingbird is a literary masterpiece, and I think the audio version would really enhance the experience.
For nonfiction fans, I highly recommend Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. This book explores complex ideas about the history of humanity with clear, engaging language.
Wow, those are some heavy hitters. I could see how those books would really stretch those advanced English muscles.
Yeah.
Any other recommendations for our advanced listeners?
For something a little lighter but still challenging, I recommend The Martian by Andy Weir.
Okay.
It's a thrilling sci-fi adventure with witty dialogue and plenty of technical vocabulary.
That's a great one. I love how The Martian blends humor and suspense. Okay, Sarah, we've covered recommendations for beginners, intermediate, and advanced learners. As we wrap up our deep dive, what's the one key message you want our listeners to take away?
It's simple. Embrace the power of audiobooks. They are an incredible tool for language learning, offering a fun and engaging way to improve your listening skills, expand your vocabulary, and master the nuances of English. Find what you love, make it a habit, and watch your fluency soar.
Beautifully said, Sarah. This has been an incredibly enlightening journey into the world of audiobooks. And remember, listeners, this is just the beginning. There's a whole universe of audiobooks out there waiting to be discovered. So put on your headphones, press play, and let the language learning adventure begin. Until next time, happy listening. Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. Today we're tackling something a lot of you, our very proficient listeners, have brought up.
Right.
You're at that impressive C2 level in English,
Yeah.
Near native. You understand pretty much everything. You can express complex stuff, but maybe you still feel those little gaps.
Exactly. That feeling of being proficient, but not quite effortless.
Yeah, that's it. You
Yeah.
want to polish things up. Get rid of those tiny tells that say non-native.
It's a really common goal at this stage. It's less about fixing big mistakes and more about, well, finding that natural flow, the rhythm, the intonation native speakers use.
And the cultural stuff too, like idioms.
Absolutely. That implicit understanding, the nuanced use of idioms, slang, it's all part of how people genuinely connect using language. It's the how, not just the what.
Okay, so that's our mission today. We're diving deep into two methods that are, honestly, pretty effective and actually enjoyable. Using TV series and maybe a bit unexpectedly, really harnessing audiobooks. We've looked at sources covering all sorts, from intense dramas to, engaging nonfiction.
All geared towards helping you bridge that final gap.
Precisely, to help you unlock that next level of fluency. So let's kick things off with TV series. For someone at C2 who's already really good, what's the unique edge a TV series gives you compared to, say, just talking to people or using textbooks?
Well, the big thing is what we call contextual immersion. It's sustained.
Sustained.
Yeah, unlike a one-off chat, a series lets you spend hours and hours with the same characters. You see their speech patterns, how they interact, their relationships, all within a consistent world.
Okay, so you're not just hearing isolated sentences.
Exactly. You're observing language in action, building friendships, showing emotion, navigating tricky social stuff. It helps you internalize the natural flow, the intonation, the unspoken rules. Stuff textbooks, well, they can only really describe abstractly.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like long-term observation. Okay, so to really get the most out of this, we've picked out a few shows. Let's start with one for the brave ones, maybe those interested in politics.
Yeah.
We have to mention The West Wing. The dialogue. Wow. It's known for being incredibly fast, really sharp, sounds almost intimidating.
It can be.
So what's a C2 level strategy for tackling that beyond just, hitting rewind constantly?
Right. For The West Wing, we'd suggest something like linguistic microanalysis. Don't just pause and replay the whole scene.
Okay.
Find those specific moments, maybe where characters talk over each other or there's a clever bit of rhetoric, and replay just that tiny snippet, maybe 5-10 seconds, over and over.
Like dissecting it.
Exactly. Forensically. You're looking at the mechanics of how they speak, not just trying to catch the meaning.
Yeah.
You'll pick up on political jargon too, terms like filibuster.
We're just talking to delay a vote.
Precisely. Or veto, rejecting a bill. And caucus, those private party meetings, it's a masterclass in how language is used strategically, often for power.
Okay, that's a much more active way to watch than just hitting rewind. It forces you to look at how it's built. Any specific episode to see this in action?
Two Cathedrals, season 2. It's got real emotional weight, but the dialogue is just incredibly rich and, yes, very fast. A great challenge for this kind of dissection.
Got it. Two Cathedrals. Okay, let's switch gears. From the intensity of The West Wing, let's go to something that, well, might seem simpler on the surface, but is just as packed with language. Sitcoms.
Ah, yes.
What about a classic like Friends? Why is that still useful for advanced learners? Some might think it's too basic.
That's a fair point, but dismissing it is a mistake, I think. Friends is so valuable because it captures everyday natural conversation so well. It's not just about following the jokes. It's about noticing how the characters' personalities shine through their language. Think about Chandler's sarcasm.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Or Monica's very precise way of speaking. Phoebe's quirky phrasing. Watching those differences helps you grasp how language shapes identity. That's a really advanced skill.
That's a great point about personality. So beyond just the plot, what specific language things should a C2 learner listen for in Friends?
Definitely focus on the idioms. They're everywhere. And those tricky phrasal verbs that pop up constantly in casual chat.
Right.
Also pay attention to the rhythm, how they interrupt, finish each other's sentences, use little sounds to keep talking. And the humor often hinges on wordplay, puns, misunderstandings. You need good cultural and linguistic chops to catch it all.
Any particular episode that stands out for that quick wit?
The one with the embryos is a classic example. Really fast-paced, sharp, witty dialogue throughout.
Okay, excellent. Now, let's hop across the pond. British English. Clever dialogue. For me, Sherlock is it's like a language puzzle.
It absolutely is. A gift for language learners, really.
Why specifically?
Well, you've got Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock, right? His monologues are legendary. So articulate, complex sentences, packed with precise vocabulary and delivered incredibly fast. He's thinking out loud.
Yeah, it's amazing to listen to.
And then you contrast that with Martin Freeman as Watson. Much more down-to-earth, relatable, colloquial British English.
So you get both ends of the spectrum.
Exactly. And the writing itself is just so clever, full of Puns, wordplay, cultural nods. It really immerses you in a certain type of British humor and storytelling.
Where's a good place to start with Sherlock?
A Study in Pink, the very first episode. It sets the stage perfectly, linguistically, and narratively.
Great. Now, besides these big ones, you mentioned a few others that offer different linguistic flavors. Can you give us a quick taste of what they offer advanced learners?
Sure. Let's see. Breaking Bad is fascinating for contrast. You've got Walter White's language getting more sophisticated, almost academic.
Right, as he changes.
Versus Jesse Pinkman's very slangy, regional Albuquerque accent, plus some Spanish mixed in. It shows you a darker side of American English, including the rougher language, obviously.
Okay. What else?
Mad Men. Think elegant, polished language from the 1960s ad world. Great for seeing how people use subtle language for manipulation, conveying tension without saying things directly.
Understated.
Then there's Black Mirror. It pushes language into the future, grappling with tech jargon, new concepts, really makes you think about how language evolves.
Interesting.
The Crown offers very formal, polite British English. You see how language reflects protocol, power, hierarchy within the royal family.
Very different from Sherlock.
Very. And finally, The Office, both UK and US versions, actually. They capture that mix of everyday chat and office jargon brilliantly. And the mockumentary style, the improvisation, it feels incredibly natural, spontaneous, lots of humor in the awkward pauses, too.
That's a fantastic range. It really shows how diverse TV can be for language learning. So boiling it all down for TV series, what's the key takeaway?
Find shows you genuinely enjoy. That's number one. Don't make it a chore.
Right.
But then be an active viewer. Pause. Rewind. Don't just understand the words. Notice how they're used, the stress, the phrasing, and then think, how can I use that? It's moving from just watching to actually analyzing.
Active linguistic analysis. I like that. Okay, let's switch from screen to sound. Audiobooks.
Right.
People often think of them as just, entertainment for commutes. But you're saying they're serious learning tools, even at C2.
Absolutely. They are powerful tools at any level, but especially for refining advanced skills.
How so? How does listening without pictures push fluency in a different way than TV?
Well, it's a great question because it highlights the core difference. By removing the visuals, audiobooks force your brain to rely entirely on auditory input.
Okay, so it sharpens your listening.
Hugely. You become hyper-aware of pronunciation nuances, the rhythm, the intonation, the music of the language, without visual cues like facial expressions helping you along. For a C2 learner, it's about tuning your ear to those subtle cadences that make speech sound truly natural.
Right, the things you might miss when you can see the actors. So a more focused auditory workout. How do we make sure we're getting the most benefit?
First step, and it's crucial, is choosing the right audiobook. Find your sweet spot.
Sweet spot.
Yeah, challenging enough to learn new things, new words, complex sentences, but not so difficult. It becomes frustrating and you just, switch off. Think of it like weights at the gym.
You need the right weight to build muscle, not injure yourself.
Exactly that. Enough, challenge, but manageable.
Okay, what about focus? Do I need to be glued to every word, or is it okay to listen while I'm, say, cooking or driving?
Both have their place, especially for advanced learners. You should definitely use both active and passive listening.
Explain the difference.
Okay, active listening is laser focus. Maybe you even have the text in front of you. You're really dissecting pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary. That's your intense workout.
Yeah.
Passive listening, maybe during chores or commuting, isn't necessarily about catching every single word for a C2 learner. It's more about letting the natural rhythm and flow wash over you. It trains your ear subconsciously to the cadence of native speech stuff you might understand intellectually but haven't fully internalized yet.
So passive listening isn't lazy listening. It's training your ear for the overall sound and feel.
Precisely. It helps your brain accept the natural flow without you having to consciously process every detail.
I like that distinction. Okay, audiobooks are full of words, loads of them. How do we make new vocabulary really stick?
Repetition is part of it, but active use is key. Hear a new word. Rewind. First, try to guess the meaning from the context around it. That builds your inferencing skills.
Okay.
Then definitely write it down. Journal, flashcard, whatever works for you. But the most important step, use it actively.
Speak it or write it yourself.
Yes, straight away if possible. And focus on quality over quantity. Master a few useful words rather than just making long lists you forget.
Makes sense. Use it or lose it. Now, you mentioned pronunciation and intonation earlier. A lot of C2 learners still feel a bit unsure about their accent or how natural their intonation sounds. Can audiobooks really help with that?
Oh, massively. Listening to different narrators, different accents, British, American, Australian, whatever, it's like a workout for your ears. You start noticing subtle differences and sounds that maybe you missed before.
The intonation, the music.
Exactly. That rise and fall, the stress on certain words, the pauses. It's crucial for sounding natural and conveying the right meaning or emotion. Audiobooks give you perfect models. You get to hear skilled native speakers demonstrating this constantly. It's an amazing resource for internalizing it.
This is really practical advice. Okay, for busy people, how do we actually fit this into our lives? It sounds like another thing to schedule.
It's about finding those pockets of time that already exist. Your commute, making dinner, walking the dog, working out, even waiting in line for coffee. Turn that downtime into growth time. Or you could create a small ritual. Make it a conscious choice, maybe 20 minutes before bed or during your Sunday morning routine. Consistency is more important than length.
Okay, and what about tech? I love that you can change the playback speed on most apps. How should C2 learners use that feature?
Oh, it's a game changer. Slowing it down isn't usually necessary at C2 unless you're tackling a really complex sentence or a very unfamiliar accent and want to analyze it closely.
Right.
But speeding it up, that's a great challenge. It pushes your brain to process faster, closer to or even slightly above native speed. It's like choosing a heavier weight at the gym. Again, find the speed that challenges you but still allows comprehension.
So adjust it based on the goal for that session. Okay, what about unknown words? You're listening, enjoying the story, and bam, a word you don't know. Stop everything.
No, try not to break the flow too much. Play detective first. Try hard to guess from the context. That's a skill in itself. If you're really stuck, maybe quickly jot it down or use the bookmark feature to look up later. But keep listening if you can once you do look it up and learn it.
Use it.
Use it. Take it for a test drive. And remember the most important factor in choosing an audiobook.
Let me guess.
Enjoyment.
You got it. Pick something you want to listen to. Also, maybe look for narrators with clear voices, a good pace, and try different accents. Train your ear.
This has been super helpful. Any last thoughts on making audiobooks a sustainable part of the learning journey?
Just consistency, really. Even short, regular listening sessions add up. Think of it like building muscle. It takes time and regular effort, and be patient with yourself. Getting from C2 to that truly native feel is about refining nuances. It's a journey. Celebrate the small wins.
Great advice. Okay, now for the moment I know people have been waiting for. Specific audiobook recommendations, tailored for different levels, thinking about their language value. All right, even at C2, sometimes it's good to start with something clear and well narrated. So for warming up or just enjoying beautiful, simple prose, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. The language is gorgeous, descriptive.
A classic.
And even something like The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle sounds basic, but the repetition and clear structure are surprisingly good for locking in sentence patterns, even now.
Okay, good warm-ups. What about intermediate level or C2 learners wanting a really engaging story?
For that, the Harry Potter series is fantastic. J.K. Rowling's vocabulary gets richer as the books go on. And the big bonus, you can choose the Jim Dale narration for American English.
Or Stephen Fry for British.
Exactly. Perfect for comparing accents. Also Wonder by R.J. Palacio. It's touching, relatable, and the language is very contemporary and accessible. Clear narration, too.
Excellent. And now for the advanced listeners, those ready for a deeper linguistic dive.
Okay, for a literary challenge, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Amazing book, obviously. But the audiobook, often with a southern U.S. accent, really immerses you in regional dialect and how language reflects character and society. Listen for how the narrator switches between the narrative voice and character voices.
Oh, that's a great point about the accent and register shift. Nonfiction.
Sapiens. A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari is brilliant. It tackles complex ideas, so the vocabulary is advanced, but the language is incredibly clear, precise, and engagingly written. It's academic, but reads like a story.
Good one. And maybe something a bit different.
How about The Martian by Andy Weir? It's sci-fi, thrilling, but also incredibly funny. The dialogue is witty, and it's packed with technical and scientific terms used in a really natural, often humorous way through the main character's internal monologue and logs.
Fantastic range there. Wow.
Yeah.
This has been incredibly enlightening. It's really clear that both TV shows and audiobooks aren't just passive entertainment. They're powerful, fun ways to really nail those English nuances at the C2 level.
They really are, so embrace them. See them as targeted workouts for your language skills. Find what you love, stick with it, make it a habit, and you will see your fluency and your deep understanding reach that next level.
Just imagine Imagine understanding not just the words, but all those subtle layers underneath the personality, the culture, the real intention effortlessly. How much richer your understanding of the English-speaking world becomes. So what are you waiting for? Go explore some of these recommendations and start refining your English today.